Picture this: London, 1666. The city is a maze of narrow, winding streets, packed with timber-framed houses leaning precariously against each other. It's a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark. And on the night of September 2nd, that spark arrived. Our story begins in a small bakery on Pudding Lane, owned by a man named Thomas Farroner, the King's baker. Late that night, after a long day of baking ship's biscuits for the Royal Navy, Farroner's family went to bed, believing the oven fire was out. But it wasn't. Embers, still glowing hot, ignited a pile of nearby firewood. Just after midnight, the house was ablaze. Farroner, his wife, and daughter managed to escape by climbing out of an upstairs window onto the roof of the house next door. Tragically, their maid was too frightened to follow, and became the fire's first victim. At first, Londoners weren't overly concerned. Small fires were common in the city. The Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was woken up and famously scoffed at the blaze, saying, "Pish, a woman might piss it out," before going back to bed. This single, dismissive comment would go down in history as a colossal mis. What he and others failed to account for was the perfect storm of conditions. London had just endured a long, hot, dry summer. A strong easterly wind was blowing, fanning the flames, and carrying sparks from roof to roof. The fire quickly became an unstoppable inferno. The standard firefighting method of the time was to create fire breaks by demolishing houses in the path of the flames. But the Lord Mayor hesitated, worried about the costs and who would pay for the destroyed properties. This delay was catastrophic. By the time he gave the order, the fire was too large and moving too fast for the primitive demolition tools to be effective. Panic began to grip the city. People fled their homes, carrying whatever they could. The streets were choked with carts, people, and animals, all trying to escape. The River Thames became a traffic jam of boats as people tried to save their belongings, or simply themselves. The diarist, Samuel Pepys, a key eyewitness, described the chaos vividly. He wrote of the most horrid, malicious, bloody flame and people flinging their goods into the river. The fire raged for 4 days and 4 nights. It was a terrifying spectacle. The sky glowed red 4 miles around. The heat was so intense it melted the lead roof of St. Paul's Cathedral, sending molten metal pouring down the streets like a river. The ancient cathedral, a landmark for centuries, was reduced to a smoking ruin. The stones of its walls exploded from the heat. The noise was deafening, the roar of the flames, the crash of falling buildings, and the screams of terrified people. The fire consumed everything in its path: homes, churches, businesses, and public buildings. It devoured the Royal Exchange, the Guildhall, and countless livery halls. It seemed like the end of London itself. So, how did they finally stop it? 2 things changed the course of the disaster. First, the strong easterly wind finally died down. Second, a more decisive strategy was put into action. On the orders of King Charles II and his brother, the Duke of York, sailors from the Royal Navy were brought in. They used gunpowder to blow up entire rows of houses, creating massive, effective fire breaks that the fire could not cross. It was a drastic measure, but it worked. By Wednesday, September 5th, the fire was largely under control. The smoldering ruins would continue to burn 4 days, but the spread had been stopped. The aftermath was staggering. The Great Fire of London had destroyed over 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and most of the city's civic buildings. An estimated 80% of the walled city was gone. Astonishingly, the official death toll was incredibly low, recorded as just a handful of people. However, historians now believe the actual number was likely much higher, as the deaths of the poor and middle class were often not recorded, and the intense heat would have cremated many victims, leaving no trace. In the wake of the destruction, a wave of paranoia swept through the city. With England at war with the Dutch and French, many believed the fire was a deliberate act of arson by foreign agents. A simple-minded French watchmaker named Robert Hubert confessed to starting the fire, even though his story was inconsistent and he wasn't even in London when it began. In the hysteria of the time, he was convicted and hanged. It was only later discovered that he had been on a ship at sea when the fire started. But out of the ashes, A new London was born. The devastation provided a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rebuild the city. King Charles II was instrumental in this process. While many ambitious, grid-like plans were proposed by architects like Christopher Wren and John Evelyn, they were ultimately too difficult and expensive to implement. Property lines were ancient and complex, and people were eager to rebuild quickly. So, the new London largely followed the old medieval street plan, but with significant improvements. New building regulations were introduced, mandating that all new houses be built of brick and stone instead of timber. Streets were made wider to prevent fire from jumping across them so easily. The most iconic result of this reconstruction effort was the work of Sir Christopher Wren. He was tasked with rebuilding the city's churches, including the magnificent St. Paul's Cathedral. His design, with its world-famous dome, became a symbol of London's resilience and rebirth. It still stands today as a testament to the city's ability to recover from disaster. To commemorate the fire, a monument was erected near Pudding Lane, known simply as the Monument. The tall column designed by Wren and Robert Hooke offers panoramic views of the rebuilt city. It stands as a permanent reminder of the days when London burned. The Great Fire of London was a defining moment in the city's history. It was a catastrophe of unimaginable scale, but it also paved the way for a safer, more modern, and more resilient city. It transformed London's architecture, its regulations, and its very character, leaving a legacy that is still visible over 350 years later. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from history. We'll see you in the next one.